Hello techies, I'm Divya here. On behalf of CyberBrainer, don't you think the world of tech is evolving faster than ever? Now is the perfect time to dive in and build the skills that will take you places. With CyberBrainer, we are putting you in the driver's seat of your own future. We at CyberBrainer don't just teach your interest. We believe that knowledge is power, but it's applied knowledge that truly sets you apart. Whether you're diving into data science, mastering artificial intelligence, or exploring the world of cybersecurity, our courses are designed to give you the skills that matter. So let's jump into the session and make the future yours today. Thank you.
Today my agenda is, let me define the agenda of today's session. I will start discussing about API design. We cover the basics of the Mule message processing. That's a few fundamentals we covered. Now I want to discuss about API design. This is also equally important. Today I will cover the basics of API design. And we come back to implementation. And we see the debug process, how to debug the Mule message processing. And we discuss about the FVM component. Mule component in Mule message processing section. These two are related to implementation and we will do in Anypoint Studio. This we do in the API design. This is today's agenda. Now we need to design an API. We need to design the REST API for our integration. What is the basic usage, basic advantage if I expose my integration as an API? The purpose is that other applications can get to, can have access or communicate your application via online. Excellent. The client or the application which you want to access my API, I can have detailed information about my API. The API design is a simple document. What it tells is what are all the resources available in an API and what are all the services my API provides. And for each to access each service, what input the client has to pass. And offering execution of that service, what output the API returns back to client. Right. That information is bundled inside the API that the client who wants to access the API has detailed information. What input he has to pass, what output he will get from the API. All the information he has, therefore he can efficiently use our APIs. Right? This acts as a contract between service consumer and service provider. API works as a contract. If there is no contract service, consumer has no way to understand about the service provider. That's right. Now that is the basic definition of the API. Now coming to the REST API, let me show you some slides on that. You know about the REST, right? REST is an architecture style based on web standards. We use the STP protocol to implement the REST standard. And REST is a primary basic block. Resource is a primary basic block in the REST standard. What is the resource? You are ahead of the resource, Amit. Resource. In the REST terminology, the resource. In the REST terminology, we always use the resources, right? In the REST, The very first step in the REST is we identify the resources. Then you may ask, what is resource? First, the identity will say that the very first step in the REST implementation is the STP is identified, the resource. Resource is a real-time object, right? I want to develop something like HR API. Using HR, guys, I want to develop some API for chart. Here, the real-time object is employee. For this application, employee is an object. What this HR API wants to do is it wants to create a new employee to the organization. If a new employee joins the organization, it wants to create a new employee. And you want to generate the report on the employees. For that, HR applications want to retrieve the already existing employees, right? Retrieve the information about the employees. And you want to change some employee information. Some orders got changed. The employee designation got changed. The HR application wants to update the employee. Update the employee. When the employee leaves the organization, this application wants to remove that employee, delete the employee. My API raw API wants to do these operations. It wants to create the new employees. We want to get the information about the employees. It wants to upgrade the employees and delete the employees. Here what object it is working on is, it is working on an object called employee object. An employee is not a simple string or a digit, right? It is an object. It has some properties. Employee object has properties like employee has a name, employee has employee number or employee ID, and it has a designation. Some blah blah properties are there for each employee, right? This is an object. It's not a simple string, right? This is called a resource. I call this as a resource. In the rest of the terminology, what is resource means? The real-time object that we want to create, or we want to retrieve, or we want to update or delete. That object is called resource. Everything in the rest of the world is about the resources. First, we need to identify the resource. A resource is accessed via common interface-based HTTP standard methods. If I want to create a new employee, I need to use some HTTP method to create a new employee. Then what method is appropriate to create a new employee? To create a new employee, client has to post. A client who wants to create a new employee, he has to post information about the employee. First, this is the employee name, employee number, etc. Create this employee. Then this message comes to the STPI or REST application. It takes this employee information and creates on the backend. Maybe stores database, whatever. It creates an employee on the backend. It takes the employee from the client, but then the appropriate method is a post. Post only supports write. This message travels to the application, and the application is able to create an employee. For that to create, the appropriate method is a post method, HTTP standard method. Now, sometimes the client wants to see the employee's information. Now the message flows from the API back to the client this way, right? What kind of request the client needs to do is to do the request using the GET method. GET. GET means get the employee information from the application, right? To retrieve, the appropriate method is the GET method. On the resource on the employee, if I apply GET method, the client will retrieve information from the application to the client console. If a client wants to create a new employee, use the post method. In the post method, he posts the employee details on the employee resource that the employee got created on the backend. To update a specific employee, there is some employee called Hamodi. He wants to update the specific employee. The client will pass the employee ID and what information he wants to update. But that the appropriate method is a put method. Delete the employee, there is a delete method. These are HTTP standard methods. On the resource, I will apply this standard method and I will develop the application. That's what here, it's me. I will show you the demo also, don't worry about that. I really liked how you laid out. There's a couple of technologies here. In the Rust API, you deal with the resources, right? And the resources say that are real-time objects that you want to interact with. And to do that, you use HTTP method. To post, when you're creating stuff, to use a GVT method, when you want to retrieve information, when you want to update your PUT, when you want to delete the resources. This thing, for example, like say that if you are adding or getting stuff, what is that you're doing? We cannot say that we are adding resources, right? We cannot say that. We are creating resources and then backing. I thought, for example, in this example, employee is the resource. Exactly, embedded resource. But what we're adding is that a new employee information or updating information or deleting information, the whole lot of we're not changing that, but we are changing what contains the employee and I don't know table or whatever. What is that part that we are updating or deleting or posting or creating? Can we call it a resource or it has a different name? Which one, Hamid? In your example, like the employee, right employee. When you want to add new employee, you use a post method. You want to get a new employee. You need to use a post method. And when you want to update, you will use a put retrieve get. For example, when we get and delete, it might be. Get is very straightforward. But when we're posting a new employee inside the employee object, what I'm thinking about is that it's like a table called employee, right? And inside the table, there's a column and rows that shows all the information about the employee. When we add in, we are inserting a new row like a new person. And that's the one we add in, or deleting or updating. But we're not touching the employee table, right? We're not changing the table, but we're changing the rows inside the employee. That is on the implementation and hammered. That is the next phase. We are still in the design phase itself. I know. That's implementation. You can use the backend as a database, or you can store inside a file. Whatever way, you can implement the backend. Now we focus on the design itself. The design, right? The implementation we do other. Anypoint should be related later. Now we focus on the design, how we are designing this. API, There is one development, some HR API, where it's required to create a new employees, to retrieve employees, to upgrade employees. These are requirements required by the client. We need to do these methods. How a client can use your API and create new methods on the backend, new employees on the backend, and how a client can retrieve the employees from the application. How to operate all this stuff. For that, we will design the API first. Yep, you have to design first. Alright, I'm with you. For design purpose, we are discussing about how the API would be designed, what methods used to do what kind of operations. That's the discussion happening now. I will show you the design, I will show you the RAM, and then you get idea about how we are designing the API and what is the advantage of design, all the stuff. At the time of implementation, your questions will be answered right. How we are doing that on the backend, how we are creating databases, how we are creating those. That is all the implementation, right? Now in this session, we will focus on the design phase itself. The REST application deployed in the server provides access to the resources, and the REST client accesses and modifies the resources. REST application means we develop some kind of new application we deploy to server that it can provide that resource, whatever resource we design. In this case, employee resource, right? We develop a REST application based on the employee resource, and we deploy it to server that it provides access to the employee resource. And in this case, the REST client is a Postman. Using Postman, you can access the employee resource and you can modify the employee resource. That's the issue. By using, get method, get post and forth. These are estimators, get post, put, delete. You have the support for each resource. This we'll discuss. Next thing is we'll discuss that one. Now to describe the REST API in the MuleSoft, it uses a language called RAML. First of all, API modeling language. To design the REST API, RESTful. A stands for API. M stands for modeling. And L stands for language. RESTful API modeling language stands. RAML is used to design REST API, describe the REST API. MuleSoft. MuleSoft designed something called Deliver, something called Anypoint platform. Let us show Anypoint platform. Anypoint platform is a complete infrastructure of the MuleSoft. And using the Anypoint platform, what we can do is we can design APIs. We can design new APIs. And we can develop APIs, develop or implement API. And we can deploy our API to different kinds of runtimes or servers. API. And we can share our APIs to different stakeholders or external clients or internal teams, all those things. We can share our APIs and we can manage our APIs. We can operate different kinds of security policies to our APIs that they can secure it. Secure different kinds of other policies also that we discuss our policies in the MuleSoft. This Anypoint platform provides all these kinds of features. To design API, we have the Design Center in the Anypoint platform. I will show the Design Center now. To design API, it is a simple API like. What is the purpose of Design Center is Design API Design Center. To design API, we have the Design Center. And to develop API, we used it yesterday, right? What is the component used to develop APIs? Heyman. Is API Anypoint Design right? Anypoint Studio. Studio right. Yesterday you implemented simply an application, right? Where you have all the characters, all the stuff. Using that, you can develop APIs. Anypoint Studio. Studio is a place where we can develop APIs. And deploy APIs, we have the runtime. Runtime Manager. I will show you the Runtime Manager. Locally also, you can deploy APIs using Anypoint Studio. Yesterday, you deployed API and you showed me right. And share API, there is something called Anypoint Exchange. Anypoint Exchange is a place where you can share your APIs. Like you develop the mobile applications and you put those applications in the Play Store, App Store, that other guys can able to download and can use, right? Similarly, you can develop the mobile applications you can post in Anypoint Exchange. That other parties in the world, they can use your application also. Exchange is a place for sharing your APIs or applications, right? And manage API, something called Anypoint Manager. There are different components that are available. These are all comprises called Anypoint Platform. Platform components are designed. You can design APIs, develop, deploy, share, manage. To do individual activities, we have separate components, some separate sections of this. Question here. It looks like design API and deploy API and share API and manage API. All of that is done inside Anypoint Platform. But the development API, you use Anypoint Studio. It's also part of Anypoint Platform, should be also part of it. The stuff that you have, like where we're designing the new events and stuff that's not Anypoint Platform. Which one? The one you would be using the tool like Anypoint Studio. This one. This is not part of the Anypoint Platform. No, it is also part of Anypoint. If you go over here, right, Anypoint MuleSoft.com, this is where you create your MuleSoft account, right? If you sign into Anypoint Platform, see you landed into dashboard of Anypoint Platform over here. It's loading. One moment, please. It loads quite fast. This is the dashboard of Anypoint Platform, right? You can see the design center, you can see the exchange, you can see the Anypoint Studio right here. Oh, and it's true there. Anypoint Studio, Anypoint Exchange, Anypoint Design Center, and API Manager, Runtime Manager. These are all primary components of Anypoint Platform. The first one is where you're designing API. The second one, Exchange, is where you share it. Share your APIs. Anypoint Studio is where you develop. Is that right? Correct. Correct. That is the power of Anypoint Platform. What MuleSoft do is they bunch all the components in one place and deliver it as one single product. And this owned by MuleSoft. This owned by MuleSoft. Right. Is it a cloud version of MuleSoft? You see, MuleSoft is a company, right? This is a cloud though. This is an online. This is a cloud version. This is cloud only. This is cloud version. And there is no. I'm not asking what we should do, but that's only an option we have. There is no like one we can install locally. Local installation is also there. Some clients like banking clients, they don't want to go over the cloud. They won't trust Anypoint. Sorry, MuleSoft. They won't trust anybody. What do they have then? Then they use the on-prem, the back-end systems, and they use some kind of VPC connectivity to the Anypoint. They can use that. There are several deployment options available. MuleSoft shifts right. Some kind of product purely on-prem. They need to deploy the MuleSoft itself complete on-prem. If that's the case, they will still use the Anypoint platform, but it will point it to their environment. But the design, everything here is the same. It's the same, exactly the same. Got it? Thank you. Based on the customer requirement, MuleSoft will ship that kind of product. They have to. You have to purchase something from the MuleSoft, right? To get that thing set up. Exactly. There are several deployment options available based on the customer requirement. They will provide such kind of requirement. You can go for the pure on-prem, pure local or cloud end. There's some kind of hybrid requirement. Some components in the cloud and some components are local. That is also possible. And you can deploy entirely in the cloud. That is also possible. Different options are available based on the customer's theme. Got it? I'm with you. Thank you. Now this Anypoint platform, this comprises all these kinds of components together. That if a customer gets the Anypoint platform, he can design APIs over here. He can develop APIs in the Anypoint platform. The customer can deploy here. And they can exchange. You can access, you can put some access management, all that stuff. Only one product. Now we start the first step with designing APIs. For that I need to go to the design center. Start designing it. Now I want to design a very simple API. Now there is already employee APIs there over here. I want to create some kind of account API. Some customer API. Some customer. I want to create some bank, want to create some new customers. To create a customer API, I need to log in. There is a button called Create New. I want you to click on the Create New API. Create New. There are different kinds of options that are available. Right now we focus on the API specification. We discussed API fragment new application. We discussed it later. I don't want to miss or discuss all the things one together. The very first step, I want to develop an API specification. I spec. Create API spec. I need to do the spec name. I'm using the spec name as customer API. Create API spec. And create API spec. If you see over here, I need to describe my customer API using the RAML. It is a RAML file. In the RAML, what is the first activity I need to do by designing API? Not forget about RAML. What is the first activity? I told you right. If you want to develop any kind of API, what is the very first activity? What do you need to do? First step is you design an API, like a resource. Right? For me, I want to create new customers. I want to upgrade customers. I want to do all these to customer, right? My resource is customer. For that slash. Did I answer correctly? Was it say like identify the resource? Identify the resource. The very first step. Identify my resource as a customer. I put the customer over here. Right. Now I will develop this API and I will give this API to my clients. Why I am developing this API? I provide this API to the client. The client can use this API, right? That's right. Then client want to create a new customer. Then what method you use to create a new customer? Post method. It would save the post over here. That backslash is a comment, or is it? It's a RA. It is a syntax. We need to put for resource, we need to put slash. This is a resource has to have a backslash or forward slash. Then the resource name and the colon at the end. It's a resource definition. Now see, I put post over here. What I did? What is the reason I need to post here? Because you want to create something. Now post is a child of the customer. Child means you can see some space over here, some tab over here, from here to here. This indicates that this post is a child of the customer. This post is a player on the customer resource. It should not be like this. It's not valid case. Is that like a 1 tab or 2 tab? The method should be child of the resource. How you indicate the child means you need to put a tab over here. Then it indicates that this is post, is we are playing on the customers. In the same RAML file, you can have multiple resources. For example, in the RAML file, I'm creating customers and I'm creating accounts also. For example, to define accounts, I'm creating one more resource here, slash accounts. This is a different resource. Right. In this aspect, there are two resources. There's only customer resources there and account resources there. Right. And to create a customer, I use a post method. And to retrieve a customer, what method do we use? Get method. Now you see get and post are siblings. They are the same level. Right. To update a customer, what method do we use? Put method. Oh, you can even click it. It's clickable, huh? That's nice. It's clickable. Now to do it, accounts. What is the method I want to do the accounts? What is the method I need to use? Retrieve. Likewise, we will apply methods on the resources. Right now, we go to the second step. A client who is using this resource wants to create a new customer, right? Then use a post method. Then the post method. He will send the customer information in a body section. The body, right? Post has body and that body has. And the body might be a JSON or XML. Usually we use the JSON or XML, whatever the content, right? Now here, if you observe this snippet, these 4 lines, right? Focus on the 4 lines. What are the 4 lines indicates? There is a customer resource is there. The resource and HTTP method. Method post means this is used to create a new customer. And the client can post the customer information, the body. In what format? The client posting the JSON. And we want to define, you can define some examples also, how the customers would like. This is an example. Maybe the customer would like this. Some customer information. You can put any parameters, whatever right. Now this snippet C. This should be mandatory. See, you should not put all these lines in the same line. See, the customer for the resource posts the child. For post body is a child. And for body, this is this indication right. The application might miss the child. An example is child of this application JSON. This type of hierarchical structure means parent, child, and this type of defining things in this manner. This is called YAML. Yet another morning language, YAML. The hierarchy called YAML or the language. It is called language, but very simple. Just you, if you want, if you are describing something in a hierarchical manner, that is called YAML. It's not a language. It's simple. Language means you will confuse a lot. Maybe something that I think is there. Just you defining something in a parent-child relationship over here like this. Putting some space in, putting some space here. The space itself indicates that this is the child of this parent, right? That is called YAML. That's a weird. Can you clarify for me? And YAML versus YAML. YAML versus the language you design in API in MuleSoft called RAML. Correct. But inside the RAML, the hierarchy of structure, how you structure the RAML is API specification. Exactly. Your understanding is 100% correct. RAML follows the YAML standard. YAML standard means just. I like that. I like how you put it. You say YAML follows. YAML stands for YAML. And we get another morning language, but is very simple. Nothing is there in the YAML. Just your display describing the data in a hierarchical structure. That's, you're putting some space between child and parent. Something like this. This is the YAML structure. RAML follows the YAML structure. See, if you see over here the customers in the resource, and I define 3 methods: post method, get method, put method. Let me design a get method also. But get doesn't have body. Actually get means simply what you want to retrieve information from the client. In that case, I won't send anybody as a client. I won't send anybody to the service. As a child is response. because it gets expected response from the server. There are some HTTP codes are there. One is a success code and foreign failure code, something like that. I assume the success matter. First happy part. That response has a body. And that body is just a format. Might be. Looks like this. Customer. OS. Very strictly. Therefore, you're not following that one. But it is something. It's good. Syntax is complaining. It should be. I'm going to put the same level right. It won't accept that. That's what they know. I don't know. I think it's simply. This has the two methods. One is to create a new customers, and that is to the customer. And sometimes I see the post, create a new customer, and get reduced all the customers in the application. Now you want to see a specific customer. You don't want to see all the customers. I want to see a specific customer for the system. Everything you customer. For that I need to pass some unique identification of the Hamid, like the Hamid ID or name or whatever, something like that. For that I need to declare something called subresource. Subresource. I declare inside the main resource a customer slash and the customer. Some of this thing I put in the practice. See customer slash, customer ID. I'm wrapping inside curly braces. It's like a URL. Means at runtime, I will pass the customer ID. If you want to know the information about the Ganesh, I will pass the Ganesh ID. If you want to know information on Hamid, I will pass Hamid ID. Well, that one. Here I can't. I will apply something called get method to get the information about the Hamid. Some things you don't know. Nothing wrong with long spaces, but should not be the same. You can put the example. The example is not mine. Is that right? All the examples you use in. It's not required, but it's good to have it. Good to have. You're telling the API. This is how the examples of data will look like. I'll show you that one. But the advantage of putting examples, I can show you how I can put a simple. Alright now, it's a very simple API designed for customers. Actually, customers using customer object write the real-time data object. I need to declare some of this. I've been in the next session. I will show you how to declare data type. Here I am putting everything example. It's not a standard. We won't use the standard by the real-time APIs. But as a very simple thing, simplify this in the examples. What happens? You have two methods inside the customers. Two customers. No, like under customers resource. You have two methods, one post and one get. And they're inside the customers. And you have another. This is also under customer, the customer ID. And the customer, but it's a sub-resource. But it's inside of a customer's resource. Right. Inside the customer. Therefore, you see over here the neural path looks like the customers. Oh, I see now. Now you want to update some customer. You can. You need to put method over here. Not get put. Method means you're passing the customer. I want to update this specific customer. Because the body. I'm not an example. Now, this API, there are two methods on the main resource and two methods of resource site. Now, why use of advocates design the API? Something called API first approach, the user design for the first approach. Sorry, design first approach. What happens is actually, when you design the API too, in the earlier days, they will develop the API first without any designing. Maybe they implement the API. They develop the API to develop the API. What happens is because requirements. Requirements that is in the API. The developer API. Of developing the API, those showcased to the client. They demonstrate to the client. And at this point, what happens is client has a different kind of expectations on the requirements. But our IT team understands different manner and they develop the application different manner. The moment when you are showcasing to the client got surprised. Nobody, I didn't expect in this manner. I have some different expectations, but you design different things. I don't want that. I want to know different ways. At this point, we put a lot of time and effort. Our development team put some considerable amount of time and effort to develop the API. What happens? All our times and effort got wasted. We need to develop a client, right? Instead of that, before developing itself, we design the API. If there is an option to showcase your API at this point itself, the design point itself, right? To showcase to the API to the design point itself, the customer and your customer gives some kind of points. Customer gives feedback based on that. You refine the API design again, and you refine the design again multiple times. And at some point of time, you are a customer on the same page. You refine the API multiple times, and that is agreed by the customer. And at that moment, you start the development. After that, once you and your customers are on the same page, then you start the development. If you follow this kind of approach right, then you can save a lot of time and effort. Because at the development point, we customer IT team put a lot of time and effort. After that, we want to change something which is very costly, very expensive. Before design, it's very less expensive. We can change anytime. We can design very easily rather than the development right. Anypoint. Use this kind of feature to showcase your design to the customer. That is called a marking feature. It's marked as a developer application. Now I design the API here, right? You are my customer. I want to showcase you to this application to your customer. Hey, Hammoud, I developed a customer API to you. Let me show you this application. This is what you need to send. This is what we will send back to you. Like that, you know I'm marking configuration. Marking service configuration. Right? Boom. Do you have to save this? Which one? Like all this stuff that you did, do you have to save it? It's automatically saved. What it saves? Automatically saved in the cloud. In the cloud, it uses the copy of the cloud URL. Go back one more time. How did you get here? This one. If you mark this configuration right, you click the we do this one. Use the something link over here. Click that link. Service settings. Copy the URL and go to the client and Postman. And now I want to get the resource. What resource you are using? Customers. Send it. It is this one. I can show you how much this is. The customer API. For get method, all the customers. This one is really the API design. API design. The customer API design. How does it know that? This one. It's not local right now. We're saying that Anypoint. We say Anypoint we use of. And it has that link. It has that program. I can show you that when we are. You can also try it out. I'll put you in the chart. I can do that. I can try that. You can try it out. One moment, let me grab some water. I'm beginning to trust you. Customers send. What does it get? I think it's got. I got it. This is weird. Alright. You create the API. You create the API. I'm sorry. I'm not there. I just came. I went to get some water. No problem. I was able to. I do the get method and I see what you see. That the two objects, right? and for customer name information. Now I want to get some customer humbled. For that, I'm passing something like some sys, some 12. Click on that. It doesn't exist. It is going some. It's going 200, but it's not getting anything. But we have a resource, right? Let me see the API one. Customer. Should we return this example? Humbled has this thing. Humbled has this thing. Humbled has this thing. Customer/customer ID, right? Customer/customer ID. I'll check it out. Why it's not? We don't have the ID. Anytime we pass anything, it has to return that thing. Because the customer ID the runtime will pass, right? It matches this thing. It has to return this example, but some way it's not returning. Sorry, this get has a body. It's not a body. It's a response. Response. I was going to say that to you, but then I say it might be different. I noticed this. You had a body. Then I said, maybe when you're retrieving one person, you need a body. That's nice. Body is only proportional to us. You did say that. No problem. That's it. Now, if you see any moment, star is not safe. Once part away is, it's still automatically for some time. It's returning right now. I'm getting it right. If you pass something of a customer, it takes an ID and returns some. This one. This is not an actual working one. This is just marking as an. This mark means as a working. As we do, mark it that you can demonstrate your this payloads to your customer. This is what you need to pass. This is what you get. You and your customer write. They get the same page on the payloads. What information the customer is passing and what information is the customer write. Then everything is good. Then we start the development. This is the marking feature. How long does it? And what I'm saying, what's the lifetime of this marking? Is it only for temporary? Or it's going to be there for a while? This account. You create an account, right? In Anypoint platform. The account. You can use the account for 1 month actually. But when you have a marking, link like this, how long is it going to be valid? It's in the account valid. Our free account will be valid for 1 month. In 1 month, the marking feature will be valid. But if you have a permanent environment, that could be until you retire, right? It will be available. If you take an enterprise license of Anypoint platform, right? If you design an API on the enterprise license, you can mark it. That will be available, permanently. But we develop these APIs using our temporary accounts, right? It's for 1 month only. Something like that. Let me make sure I'm connecting all the dots. When you have a requirement to work on a project, You will design this. You will design the API. Right. For example, like, I don't know. They will tell you. For example, this is the, you know the web service that you need to hit. And this is the information you need to get from that. And that resources. Then you design the API according to that. That information. Right? And when you're able to retrieve the information that you want based on the examples or based on the design you create, then you create a temporary link of mark. We call it mark. Mark. And you show the customers and say that, is this working? Is this how you want it? See, for you're using either MuleSoft or the post or something that shows them an XML format or JSON format. Whatever. The customers you're dealing with, they must know. They must know like how to use like a postman, or they have to use some kind of a that's expected. The customer has to. Because this is a HTTP application, right? The customer has, if any specific HTTP application you can test using these applications. For generic clients like the Postman or ARC or something, some HTTP client applications are there. Using that will demonstrate to the customer. They need to be familiar with that. They need to know that. Otherwise, because you know a lot of, I don't know, I'm new to this, but a lot of customers, they like, for example, like Jared. What's that? JU. They may have a better GU. I like a website or something. But here actually the communication between customer IT team and the development team IT team. Usually this kind of discussion happens between IT teams. Alright. And I see now, even if I paste the marking URL, if I paste that in a normal URL, it shows that the XML and output. M output. On the Chrome. You are saying, I'm using Chrome and I can see now, in the Chrome, I'm using the XML. The API we designed is very simple one. And we discussed about making more effort. This is one. You design the API and you want to implement the API. You want to, do some kind of here designing simpler document. It is nothing working. Copy of the thing, right? You want to develop some working copy of this API. It's just templates, right? Simple template. I can see that at the beginning you might need to create this, but I can see that the more you do it, you might have a template that you can use to, to configure, to design the API much faster than going tab and picking up all those. Do you think that makes sense? Where you may have a template that's, you can use. That template we're going to develop as part of the API design itself. The template is called a resource types and types. Then it will advance the development. Within the meals. Within the Raymond. Within the Maimon. Now, this is very simple, very fast session, right? I like to explain in very simple manner. I know. I explained this point. I mean, we can develop templates also. That's good. I think, but I like the first thing, like you're doing. I like to learn from the foundation and then build on that. Now I'm going to my Endpoint Studio over here. My intention is I want to do some working copy of the customer API. I'm creating a new project. And that's given me as a customer that implementation. Somewhere I do. All the existing different customers. I am the one. Oh, the Raymond in the business. Right. Download them. This, I need to do my credentials. I'm going to my, 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 I'm going. Guitar is going location. Ask me if I tap on various show up all the AP. I is presenting my designer center. I want to create implementation to the customer API. I am setting the customer API. It will create a project that implements the customer API. I created a project called Customer API IMPL1. If you see this project, you have done this project right. This is called main flow. This is called router flow. This is called API kit router. I will explain what is API kit router. If you see the API you designed, how many resources are there? There is only one resource, a customer resource. And the customer resource, how many methods are there? There are two methods. Two is it? Is there one more? And the other one was the ID. One more sub-resource are there. On that we have one method. Right. One method, two methods. Two methods are there. Two methods are there. Right. As for the API, you need to provide implementation for the four methods. One method is to create an API to create a customer. And second method is to create a customer from the backend. And to get a specific customer and to operate a specific customer. There are four implementations you need to do, right? If you see the Anypoint Studio, the project we created, the project we created. Now see, there is one flow over here. And flow number 2, flow number 3, and flow number 4. The four flows are here. Each method. Each method has a flow. Now let me from the postman. I want to retrieve a customer. I want to create a customer. The customer, I call the client. Anypoint Design Center. Let me go through the design part. Let me create a customer. What happens is from the postman, there's a post method. And you send some customer information. Use a post method. And you send me some customer information, the body. The corresponding the implementation lies over here, actually in the new flow. Here you write what happens, what to do when post method, you want to store into the packet. You create something database component over here. And that will store to the backend. I see. The database, and it will be there over here. The customer table. Custom. If you add, say, takes this customer, JSON, and adds a record over here. Record in the database. That's a post method, right? Alright. Once again, I wish I understand. The client posts a message using like a RAM or a specification. And then the RAML passes the information to the Mule. And that RESTful API, I don't know. It was a RAML and now it become a Mule event. It's not like that. This Mule flow is created based on the RAML. Seems a little confusing. I put RAML snippet over it. But this snippet created based on the RAML. It won't call this one and this one will call this. That's not the matter. This is a design part. And for this design, this is the implementation part. But in the runtime, client will call directly the implementation part. The design is not in the picture. The arrow is not at all valid. I'm sorry for confusing you. Just I want to explain something like it's not working. A client will directly call the implementation. But this implementation is created on the base of this design. That's what I want to say. That's right. This now is a dummy implementation, but we need to create an implementation now, actually. It creates a dummy implementation. The project is created on some dummy implementation. But as we are developers, we need to put action implementation over here. What do you want to do when posting in the post? You want to save the file system. From here in Guinness from here, this is the post method. One on the top of it is the get method. And the other subprograms like ID stuff. If what I'm doing is now, I'm simply having different surfaces. I'm not at all implementing anything. but I'm deploying a position, simply a different operation. If I deploy this application, now deploy. In that case, I need to put localhost on here because it's not over invoking the marking method. Send me something. Now see from the Postman directly, it is the implementation. And the call is not going to the design center. Design center, based on the design, this project got created actually. That's what I want to say. Now the question people ask in the certification is, how many flows will get created for this API? They will give the API RAML file and they will ask the RAML file to get you like this. For this design, how many new flows will get in the project? It's a project based on the API. The answer is for each method, for each resource and other combinations. See, customer is a resource and post method. But this combination, one flow will be created and for customer get, one flow will be created means two flows. And for this is just combination customer ID and get then one flow created and put in the customer total. 4 flows will be created for this RAML. And for each resource and other combination, one flow will be created. On that flow, we need to implement actual implementation. What we want to do, how you want to return the information to the backend. You want to be able to store in the database or storing in the file system, storing FTP server where you are storing customer data. Alright, Ganesh, the bottom one is the post, right? The second one is the get customers. Can you go up, scroll up? And I want to see the other ones. How do they look like? Put see customer ID. And we have another customer ID get. This is get for customers. Get on the customer resource. This is put on the customer/customer ID. And third one is get on the customers. We've got 4. Post on the customers. Right here. Then which one is the main flow or? This is the main fraction. This one is. Every request will come. There's only one resource here, right? One is there. As these are flows, but there are no listener configured, the source is empty. Always the request lands over here. From the postman part is localhost 8081/API, right? If you see this laser part is API and localhost 8081. The request comes and lands at this point, then go to router. I was going to say I think you're getting to that, but there are more other stuff in this page than the 4. Like those ones. I'm not sure what. This one, we will expand later. That's why. We discussed about error handling, that what is on error propagate on the stuff. Don't worry on that. It is understandable. Now try to understand how a router routes the request to a specific flow. If my request is like this, the method is get and the resource is customers. Localhost 8081. This is the URL the listener receives, actually localhost 8081 API, right? Afterwards, what URL? I'm requesting customers, I'm requesting the method is get. It routes to the flow that is matching customer and get. Here for that, this is the method. This is the flow that is a get method and customers. Control comes over here. Therefore, here this is going to vary. Whatever you define over that's come back to our client actually. Is it complicated, Hamid? No. No, I'm understand. Alright. The first one is going to route to. If I put like this one. Over. And this one point to. This flow. Because postman we ask to get it. We didn't say to post it. We didn't say to put it right. We say get. Because it's going to route you to the get method. If I put the post, it's going to take you to the post method, right? Got. This one will work. This call will work. This flow. Post like this. The flow that's going to work dot. The post method for this flow. You put some loggers and then also you can test. Is control coming over here or not? Call when you land at this flow. Now the client can. Client is customer. This can send a body the customer information and we can create the customer on the backend, right? The application can take the customer information and the backend. You can modify it. You can continue with all the operations. I can do right as a customer. Got the employment of importance of this API. This is very basic thing. Going forward, we're going to discuss a little bit advanced concept of the API design. Hope this has got some idea about the API, the REST API, the resource. This is really good. It's really good because we design the API, we test it, we mark it, then we implement it. And then you can test it. Retrieve it in a Mule. And like in a Mule, what do you call that? Studio something. Endpoint Studio. Then you import. We need to employ you importing in Endpoint Studio, where you can do more like a transformation or more parsing. At the end of the day is that when you download it or move it to Endpoint Studio, you will do something with a message and then either it's stored somewhere or do something or whatever that customer wants. That's a high level. That's like high level process, right? How API design or API through MuleSoft works. Exactly. Now we send this thing, right? Now what happens is the STP request goes to the Mule and it takes a Mule request and transforms to STP request and transform to Mule event. That will all you know that happens over here. That's the story we discussed yesterday. This is a basic fundamental on API design and API implementation. That's nice. Right. Now coming to this is a debug process. Debug process is very important thing. Why is it developing? What I want to do is I want to put some logger in the post method. I want to put one more like that. I want to debug my application. You know debugging, right? Debugging means you want to walk through the application flow, how your application is executing. Some of you got an error. Debug is very important to trace the error. At what point the application is erroring out. That you want to identify, right? For the purpose of the debug. Got the debug. We need to put something like a breakpoint. It means at what point you want to, from what point onwards you wanted to walk through your application. That is our breakpoint. Here, what I'm doing is I'm creating one more variable over here. Some logger. Not a variable. I'm putting some logger. Some static testing the customer API. I'm putting a breakpoint over here. The simple breakpoint is right-click any component and add breakpoint. Add some dot in the corner. Right. Now I'm starting my new application at debug mode, who currently is running on the run mode. Stop. and right-click here. Debug project, right? Select the debug. The project will be playing a debug mode. Now I'm hitting my request. If I hit right, what happens? The control is stuck over here. At this point, you see this one highlighted right. You can see at this point what is the payload, what are the variables, what are the attributes. All these you can see at this point. At this, we're going to come down. The payload. We are not seeing any payload. The payload is empty because the body is empty. Actually, we're not seeing anything. What is empty? Therefore, the payload is empty. You could have some. Now, variables are also 0. There are no variables created. Now see the attributes and the headers. Are we sending attributes? Let me see. Are we sending attributes in the Postman? There are no headers. We are sending right. There are no curriculum. We are sending. Attributes are also empty because we are not seeing anything. Because if you send, I can show you that. But I'm going to share this thing. I can do one thing. Then let me send some information. I'm sending some header parameters. I'm sending query parameters. I'm sending void. Right. First thing, this thing. Now at this moment, let's see. The payload is named Mary, right? This is the payload we are sending, right? This is the payload. And what are the attributes we are sending? You see the headers. Technology is going to be used. This is the one header we are sending, right? The query parameters. Query parameters. On query parameters, we are sending, that is called. City is going to New York. Alright, you can see. Now I'm moving little further. If you press F6 or you can press this one. Next processor, it comes over here. Press F6 again. See, the control goes to the post method post customers. Post customers? How it goes to post customers? Because we are using post method and the resource is customers. Therefore, it goes over here. And I press 6 again. It goes to variable. And press F6 again. See now, new variable got created. Variable size is 2 now. Employee name is equal to Mary. What is this? I don't know. This is one employee. We can write just now. Now F6 means the flow got excluded and you can see the result in the post method. If I use the get method, write get method. Now what I can see, send it. It come over here. Come over here. Now persist. The control goes to get customers. Get customers. The flow is because the request is on the customer objects. We are working get method. The corresponding flow got involved. This will get excluded. This got this information. Hammered and this information. After execution of this one, the client, you can see that got. Please do like, share and subscribe to our channel.